Hello and welcome to another weekly roundup from blockchaingamer.biz. Today is Friday, the 30th of August. I am Jenny Jordan and with me is John Jordan. Hi John, how are you doing?
Hello, good.
Good. So, got a few things to talk about today. First, starting off with the blockchain Sui, Mysten Labs blockchain, that has, in 2024 and started off in 2023, they announced a handful of games that were coming to the network, but we didn't see sort of that much fruit coming of it. And then in 2024, there has been a bit more, let's say, sort of substantial news. And they've got this Web3 native handheld device coming out soon. They've got
bonkers.
Probably, hopefully. They had the third-person shooter Xociety, a high-end sort of, in Web3 gaming anyway, high-end shooter game.
It was the only one, really, wasn't it? That was the sort of weird thing. Sui did have some, I think, had some Korean sort of RPGs. It's never had a lot of games, but it's obviously, quite high profile as a blockchain.
They had this E4C game series. Which
but that's sort of not very high profile. But it's sort of, if you sort of boil it down, they had Xociety was a good win for them. I mean, I know those guys a little bit, and I think they're a proper team. The proper, really quite interesting sort of game concept. One of the better blockchain games in general, you'd say. So that's a good one for Sui. And then suddenly two new games, which are, I wouldn't say as good as Xociety, but sort of quite strong.
No, they're more sort of substantial, you would say, than some of the ones that were announced in 2023 and that haven't sort of not even launched yet. So those games are Darktime, which is from Animoca's game developer studio Blowfish, and the other, which has been in stealth mode since 2021 or something.
Nothing weird, wasn't it?
Known about it, really. Yeah.
It's like almost they were showing off. Like we've been building this. It's like, I mean, it's good, but it's also, I worry a little bit with Blowfish that they've been doing this. What's it called? Phantom Galaxy.
Galaxy, yeah.
Which hasn't really gone anywhere, and I know they're doing a few other sort of projects, and they're not a massive studio. So anyway, but as you say, it's a Nordic. It's one for you, a Nordic based on Nordic myth,
fantasy, medieval type. Yeah.
Tarantino violence. Physics.
Yeah.
British pub humour, it said. British pub humour. Australians doing British
pub. Can't wait.
It seemed they may not have explained it very well, but I think it looks a bit different because a lot of blockchain games are quite po-faced, aren't they? So, I mean, humour's hard to do, but, it's different at least.
It's like it's explained as a brawler royale, I think, with sort of drunk females in pubs beating up men. And
drunk males as well, I assume.
I think so. Yeah. Good. And the other title announced to come to Sui is Brave Frontier Versus, which I forgot what I was going to say there. Yeah, it's from the Gumi, I don't know how you say it, the Japanese.
I don't know. Gumi, I think they say.
Game developer Gumi, yeah. So they announced a while back that they were launching their reworking their Web2 titles into Web3 titles. So this is then springing from the Brave Frontier series, which is like Web2 games, and now making a Web3 type version. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean they've had sort of thing. So Brave Frontier is a pretty big mobile RPG franchise in Japan. It's one of those Japanese things that has never been successful outside of Japan, but in Japan was pretty big. Maybe not so big now as it used to be. But then they did this one called Brave Frontier Heroes that actually Gumi. Double Jump Tokyo did the development of, and it was sort of a reworking of their My Crypto Heroes, which was the biggest blockchain game back in 2019. And it actually launched on Ethereum mainnet, I think, in 2019, 2020, and it was actually did quite well, quite successful at the time. But that one seems to have disappeared. So now we have this Brave Frontier Versus, which may take some elements of that. I don't know, but the Brave Frontier brand is certainly a big one in Japan. I think kind of elsewhere, probably not quite so exciting.
And in other news, South Korean game developer Nexon and its sort of Web3 subsidiary NextPace announced, they revealed the tokenomics of their MapleStory Universe, and included in that the MapleStory N mobile game that's a part of the universe, which we struggled a little bit to get our head around the whole tokenomics. It was basically released as a comics, so a little bit difficult to read, and then a short sort of Medium Post press release that didn't reveal too much details. But you kind of really started trying to work out what it's all about from the comics. So tell us a bit.
I mean, I think it reminded me a little bit actually of Oasis, which is this Japanese blockchain that we sort of spoke about many times. And sort of Oasis is just its own blockchain, but it has this way of distributing games where it calls them verses. So you have like a home verse, which is sort of where everyone goes, and then like a company might have their own verse. I might have John verse, and you might have Jenny verse. So, and we would have our own games on there. They'd sort of be interoperable, but they'd be sort of. It wouldn't just be like you're launching a game on a blockchain and there's no sort of structure around that. So Nexon is South Korean, so not Japanese, but I do wonder if it's some sort of Asian way of thinking about things, because what Nexon has announced is actually broadly similar. They call them planets. So they're saying any sort of content creator might have their own planet. So at a top level, that may be game developers creating, fairly substantial and deep games. It's not very clear if I was just like someone who likes making videos, how my planet would sort of work, as if I was just making videos on YouTube or something, or Twitch. Could that be integrated? I don't quite know. But anyway, they've set the bar as being sort of quite broad. And they've said maybe people are doing videos or writing about stuff or making content, or they want to have this sort of UGC creator economy. And people who are doing this sort of stuff are making content. They're going to get rewarded in this token. Again, it's not very clear how you get rewarded. How is it going to be number of views on YouTube? Probably not. But how they're going to work that out, I don't know, because that's quite difficult. If I'm writing a poem about MapleStory Universe and you're doing a figurative dance and mime about it, how who's going to get the most tokens? Anyway, you get these tokens, and what I like about it is Nexon is giving the tokens to people doing stuff. So you're not buying the tokens, although obviously once they're live, presumably they will be traded on the exchanges. But to start off, they're giving them out to their community in some way that we don't really exactly know at the moment. And then once you have these tokens, you can then use those to basically, it's sort of buying, but equally sort of minting the assets that Nexon is going to create. So they're going to, again, using this planet analogy, they're going to have like a basic storage unit for, the sort of gear you have in these RPG games. So we're assuming swords and cloaks and, armor and stuff. And they're going to have like a fixed supply of this, and over time they're going to release it into sort of what they call almost like a meme pool. So a meme pool is something where the blockchains use to organize their blocks. So a bit like that over time. We're not quite sure again on the process, but a whole bunch of swords, maybe 10 high-powered, Imperial swords are going to go into this meme pool, and then the creators with their tokens can then sort of effectively buy them, and then those will then live in their planet, and then people can obviously then sort of buy them. So we can sort of get a rough feeling. I get a rough feeling for how that might work. The whole point of these items is that they're all going to be interoperable, so they're going to if anyone's making games or experiences or however you want to use them, all the assets will be usable, but on each planet they may have different sort of boosts. So the example they've used is on one planet you may have boots that give you 5+ sort of running, but then if you go to that might be the RPG planet, where movement is not a massive sort of attribute. Whereas if you go to a planet where it's basically like an endless runner game, those might give you like +50 running. So there's this sort of idea that there is a sort of a basic set of assets, but the sort of the attributes of those assets are also are sort of fixed in general, but different experiences can use those in different ways. Now, to me, that seems like sort of creative chaos, and sort of the way they've explained it to me creates more questions than answers. So we really have to wait and see what plays out. I guess the main thing they've said, and probably what will happen first, is the sort of the main PC game they're making, which is MapleStory N, get it right, which is their PC game, and that will be what we think of a sort of fairly standard 2D side-scrolling RPG where you're fighting things and getting loot. That's also going to be a planet. So probably the thing will go live, and it will seem like just sort of MapleStory N has gone live, but there'll be all this sort of other stuff in the background, other sort of framework in the background, which means that they can over time open it up to certainly other developers. There's going to be an SDK. I guess for me the question is, for the likes of me and you, if we just want to make fan art and do some videos about it, we're obviously not operating on the level of making a game. So how do we actually operate in that? So we don't know. There's not enough detail about that. They said there's going to be more detail coming out towards the end of the year. Obviously, the games and all that stuff's not going to go live till next year. I guess the takeaways for me are they're taking it seriously. They could have just rushed this sort of project out. MapleStory is a massive, brand in Asia in particular. So it's been a massive Web 2 game for like over 20 years. It's the game that made Nexon, so it's a very serious IP for them. And so maybe they're looking at it in, maybe they're explaining it in an overly complex way, but when it comes out, it will seem a bit more straightforward. But the good thing is they are trying to get, obviously, creators involved, and they are giving away the token. I think those are the main two things. Where obviously, if they said we're going to sell our tokens and NFTs like everyone else does, they could have made a ton of money because it's just a massive IP. But equally, they then would go through all the problems everyone has when the value of these things go down. So if you give stuff away, people can't really complain if the value goes down.
Mm-hmm. Good. This week, Mythical Games announced that their mobile football game, NFL Rivals, will be the official mobile game of the Super Bowl 2023 winners, champions, Kansas City Chiefs. Say that again.
You're an expert on the Super Bowl now.
2024 winners, champions. Yeah.
I don't know.
Kansas City Chiefs. That's the significant part. So obviously that's a big deal, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, obviously they would have spent a reasonable amount of money if you're doing a deal with the Kansas City Chiefs, obviously the biggest American football team for the last couple of years, with Taylor Swift's boyfriend as a player. That's
the most significant part.
Yeah, exactly.
Get that out there.
That's pretty big. So in a sense, you do that because you get marketing, and we're talking about it already. So that's going to help the game in terms of marketing point of view. But obviously, for marketing, you're probably, I can't think that deal will be less than millions of dollars, $1 million. So obviously they're confident enough that the game is doing well, that they are going to sort of do that deal. And again, it's a game we've spoken about quite a lot. It's done about 5 million downloads. It's hard to judge. I think I think it's going in the right direction, but it's as with all these blockchain projects, slower adoption than people would want to see. And I think it's a good sign. Obviously, they're confident about the game.
But going back to this, but there aren't sort of that many popular, big, high-quality Web3 games. NFL Rivals is definitely one of them. So if any sort of game would have such a big deal, such as this, it would be NFL Rivals. That's not surprising in that sense. We know that Mythical Games had good funding. They're working on other projects as well. So, good deal for them. So this then entails sort of fans getting an opportunity to get tickets to home games at the Chiefs playing ground, and then also like accumulating in some sort of NFL Rivals themed home game. I think that was the sort of big thing. Some fans will get tickets to that. But obviously they'll just be getting marketing and promoting through the deal throughout the season.
Yeah.
So, and then Proof of Play announced a second chain as part of their multi-chain infrastructure to support Pirate Nation for now. But I mean, it's a bigger vision beyond Pirate Nation. But so far, Apex chain is their Arbitrum-based L3, isn't it? L2, L3. that has been supporting Pirate Nation up till now, but obviously being a fully on-chain game, there are a lot of transactions. So because all the game logic is on-chain, so they found that they need another chain to support the game, and then they announced Boss Chain to that end.
Yeah.
Do you want to sort of mention anything else on that?
Yeah, so we played Pirate Nation a lot. You've tried to play it, but it's been so congested you've not been able to play it very often. So, and that's been their problem. I would say of a year so far of not many successful blockchain games, Pirate Nation has been, one of the few that has created, a growing audience. Partly because they did a token airdrop campaign that worked very well. They've also launched their token, which, like all tokens, is currently sort of down from its peak, but actually, has done okay compared to what it launched at. And it's also sort of seems to have built a decent community in terms of people who got a lot of the token tended to stake them, and they're earning these proof of play points, which we assume at some point are going to be an underlying token for some of this infrastructure. So they're an experienced team. So they, as they mentioned in the press release around this Boss Chain, they were involved with Farmville. They created that game for Zynga. Back in the day, it had 30 million daily active users. They were talking about how many servers they needed to keep that up and running. So I think it's always been in their plan that they've always spoken about a multi-chain sort of future, that this sort of Apex chain, which is a L3 based on Arbitrum, was they were going to have to build out more. And obviously this Boss Chain has gone live. We expect, I don't know, Charlie Chain or I don't know what the C is going to be, but we expect more chains are going to launch as they try to sort of scale this up to millions of players. So yeah, we'll see. I guess the game itself is fully on chain and maybe not the most exciting game. So I guess they're working on infrastructure now. At some point they're going to have to are they going to launch other games? They want it to be composable. They want other people to sort of launch games. So I guess that's the once they've got the infrastructure in place, that'll be the big thing for them, is how they sort of scale, make it a multi-experience thing. Mm-hmm. No one really cares about infrastructure, really. So they've sort of done well to make a big press release about this, and it's partly because they're getting I think, what do they say, a couple of 2 million transactions a day sustained. They sort of, I'm not technical enough to know, they were sort of saying the amount of gas they were using a day was more than any other roll-up chain. Which there is a website you can see that on. So that seems to be the case, that they are doing a lot of transactions.
Yeah. Well, would you say generally it's a sign of sort of a good game project when people are being given token allocation and staking it back into the ecosystem? I mean,
absolutely,
it's a fairly obvious point, I suppose, but just think of other examples where it's been sort of similar. Is Blocklords kind of comparable, would you say?
I haven't got data on that, actually. But yes, that obviously, pretty much everyone who with a token allows, encourages staking, because if you're staking your token, then you're not selling your token. Obviously, the whole problem is that we've seen with these play to airdrop campaigns is as soon as you give people free money, even if it's like $50, they immediately sell it. Why would they, they want $50 now, not $100 tomorrow. So what Pirate Nation managed to do, I don't know, through a combination of luck and sort of skill, obviously they are a well-funded, experienced team. So they basically had quite a nice system that when you got your token allocation, you could claim, instead of claiming it, you sort of claimed and staked it immediately in one transaction. So that obviously was just from a friction point of view. You never had those tokens. If you hit that button, you never had them in your wallet to think, oh, shall I sell them? You're staking them straight away. And the staking terms were quite good, but also a little bit ambiguous. As I say, you're getting these points, so you're not quite sure what the points are going to end up as. But it was, I can't remember. There is someone who sort of has a June Analytics dashboard on this sort of stuff. I think it is around 50% of the tokens were staked, although some people seem to be suggesting maybe that was also including some of the team and investors. So it may not be like just the people who got the airdrop. I'm not quite sure. But I think as soon as you have that, as soon as it's well known that your audience of people who could have sold the tokens didn't, then obviously that's a sort of like, the insiders are, it's like in a company with shares. If insiders are selling their shares, everyone's like, oh, what do they know? The share price is going to go down. If insiders are buying shares, like, oh, what do they know? Shares going up. So I think you get that sort of, that sort of reputational, that soft reputational concept around the game, which I think is helping them. It's a sort of similar thing, not worked quite so well for Mockaverse, but they have a similar thing where you could have taken your allocation sort of in one go, but you got a smaller allocation or staked it for a bigger allocation later. Obviously, Mockaverse is a very different, more sort of diluted sort of project, probably with more people who are keenest to just sell their tokens and move on.
How do you think?
I think so, because it's a very, Pirate Nation is a very on-chain game. It's quite hard to get into to begin with. Whereas Mockaverse, the whole point is we want as many people as possible, all pressing little buttons every day and earning these sort of points. And it's much more of a social farming sort of vibe going on with Mockaverse. Whereas Pirate Nation sort of had that a little bit, but was much more about playing the game, I think.
Yeah, I mentioned block lords, because they have their ongoing campaign now, where if you stake your Lord's tokens for 13 weeks, I think it is, you will be getting exclusive rewards. And so they're clearly trying to keep people within the ecosystem, trying to keep...
I think, so it's a good point. Block Lords is actually a very similar playbook to Proof of Play, although not quite so elegant in terms of the staking mechanics. I think, again, Block Lords is a super hardcore game, and, so someone who played it quite a lot, I did get a bit of Lord's token when it went live, but really, at the time, I wouldn't say I was disappointed. I guess I probably was actually disappointed. But and as I've discussed on the podcast with the CEO, that game is super hardcore at the moment. If you want to do well in that game, it's not really the money. You have to throw a lot of time at that game to get anywhere. So they've been quite controlled in what they've given away, and they've not. And I think they weren't quite aligned. So the token went live, and their own infrastructure, Lord's Chain, is not live yet at all. Even on I think it's not even alive on a testnet. Again, that's a L3 based on base. So they're doing, as you say, they're doing this new sort of campaign where you lock in your Lord's tokens and you earn these node points, and then the node points put you on a tiering system, and you get different rewards depending on how many sort of node points you've got in the tiering system. It's again slightly complex. I think the other thing is their timing's obviously been a little bit worse. That they've come like a month, at least a month after, probably 2 months after Proof of Play, and obviously the sort of crypto economy sentiment is very different. So those two sort of things, but they're obviously aiming towards the same point. I think Block Lords, as they're not fully on chain, I think they're I think the game is just they're sort of more focused on the game. The game they're building is much more complex than Pirate Nation. Pirate Nation is if you strip apart the game design, it's fairly basic. It's sort of like an idle type game with a little battle mode in it. It doesn't quite have it doesn't have deep meta game in it at the moment while you're doing these things. You're sort of leveling stuff up, but there's no big overarching thing. Whereas Block Lords, this whole thing is you're going to create these dynasties and have
remember,
have marriages and babies.
All your heroes are going to die.
All my heroes are going to die. For meme now. And you're going to have these battle mode coming and all. So that's just a bigger sort of game. So I think they're more focused on the game side and the blockchain stuff. That they know they're not in control of it, so they've sort of probably been a little bit less focused on that, maybe.
Yeah, good. And in funding news this week, Double Jump Tokyo, which we mentioned earlier when we spoke about the Oasis blockchain, they've announced a 10 million Series D funding round. In terms of games, they're working on Battle of Three Kingdoms, which is using Sega's Sangu Kushi Titan IP. But they also announced they're collaborating with the Japanese strategic SBI investment and Sony.
That's interesting.
So this funding is sort of earmarked towards those two partnerships. And Sony announced not long ago that they are working on their Sonium blockchain.
Yeah.
Yes.
Terrible name, isn't it? Sonium.
Yeah.
Awful.
Hard to say anyway.
Maybe it sounds better in Japanese.
Hopefully. Yeah. And other funding was Gameplay Galaxy announcing they raised 11.2 million seed extension on top of, let's get this right now, 12.7 million, which they had raised before in 2022.
No, because it's 25 in total or something, isn't it? I think it was
24 in total. I know that much. So it must be 12.7. Yeah. Anyway, they're working on mobile game Trials Extreme Freedom, which is like a Web3 mobile sort of spin-off of their Trials Extreme series, which is sort of existed as a mobile Web2 version. It was led by Merit Circle and
Blockchain Capital, yeah.
And Blockchain Capital.
But they were the lead investors in the previous round, so it's I guess this is the Trials Extreme.
It's a long gap I find between 2022 and now for a seed investment. Why is that? Do you know a little bit more about sort of funding round?
I don't really know what they call it, a seed extension. I guess. I don't think there's any formal rules around it. What you call your funding rounds. There's often what's a pre-seed or a seed, or sometimes it's about the amount you raise. Obviously, the standard thing would be pre-seed, seed, Series A, Series B, Series C. You can do extensions. The extensions normally means that you're not changing the valuation. So you're basically using the same term sheet. Term sheet is just basically the legals around the funding. But as I say, given that length of time and given what's changed in the space, it's a little bit odd. They did say the valuation was $71 million, I believe, $71 million for the company, and the round was equity plus token warrants, which means you're getting equity in the Gameplay Galaxy company, and also you'll get tokens when the token goes live, when the game goes live, end of this year, start next year. It's just I guess they felt that they sort of raised less money this time than they did last time. So they didn't want to say, we raised this in our seed and we raised less in our Series A. Series A is normally a sort of bigger amount, and normally for Series A the valuation would go up. So if you own a company, you want to be giving away smaller amounts of equity for larger amounts of absolute money. That's sort of what the process of it goes. So I guess it shows a little bit that maybe they raised too much in their first seed at too high valuation. That would sort of be my view on it. Obviously, with funding rounds, you're always interested to see if any new money comes in. In this case, no new money came in, so basically it's the original investors, who I'm sure were probably after other people to come in the round because they don't necessarily want to put in, just sort of be on the hook for it. But we'll see. I mean, they've raised quite a lot of money. The game, I think, I would be interested to see. I've been looking at some videos of it. Doesn't jump out at me. I mean, those sort of games, those motorcycle games have obviously very popular. They know that market well. I wasn't personally very clear on the Web3, how the Web3 really juiced that sort of game. They've spoken about esports and UGC content and stuff like that. So we'll sort of have to. Yeah, I'm sort of holding my horses on that one, really.
Good. Let's wrap up. Immutable-based idle RPG Immortal Rising 2, which is developed by Bad Beans and published by Planetarium, as we figured out yesterday. Anyway, it is 400,000 pre-registrations within a week. The pre-regs opened on the 19th of August. So now it's been more than a week, but within the first week it did get 400,000 pre-regs, which is quite substantial. And to sort of drive this interest, they have various rewards campaigns where people can claim orbs. Points, sort of all points, and then those can be converted to the Immortal token IMT, which is set to launch later in the year. The game is supposed to launch in Q3 2024. The token will follow in Q4 2024, and they do say that these accumulating orbs is sort of the heart of the game. Those IMT tokens will both be like a governance token, but also used for in-game sort of transactions and in-game items. Tell us more about Immortal Rising, where it comes from, what it is, so on.
Yeah. So obviously there was Immortal Rising 1 that was, I think, was fairly successful. So I didn't actually play that, but from what I've seen, it is like an idle RPG. So actually very much like Planetarium's 9 Chronicles, which is a idle RPG, which has been actually pretty successful. It launched on mobile in November last year. I think they're up to about 90,000 daily active unique wallets. I play it every day. Like a lot of these idle RPGs, I think they tend to struggle in sort of long-term meta play, that you're sort of doing the same thing every day, and it's an idle game, so you're not, you're sort of, you're not, tapping, fight, block, run back. It's not an action game like that. So you're sort of, it's more strategic in how you're using resources. I think sort of 9 Chronicles has struggled a little bit when you get to a certain level. I'm sort of quite not the highest actually by a long way, but quite a long, quite well powered up in the game, and it sort of gets a little bit dull that you don't really have a lot of decisions. So I think this one will be a little bit more action focused. We'll sort of see sort of how it goes. It's on mobile, which is obviously good for these sort of idle games. I guess the sort of issue for me will be, I think it's quite hard to build deep economies in these sort of idle games. Obviously not impossible, but as I say, I think with 9 Chronicles, you get into it and it's really quite good for the first sort of days and weeks maybe, and I think when you start getting into months, then probably the retention is not so great. So 9 Chronicles actually has a whole bunch of blockchain stuff that I got really into, where you're sort of buying NFTs and staking them, and there's quite a lot of rewards you can get from that. With a mobile game, it's obviously harder to do because you're going through app stores, and so I think this will be more of a lightweight sort of experience from that point of view. So I guess I'll be interested to see sort of how is that token actually used? Why do you need that token? Why will people buy this token? Or are they just giving them away?
I did see the developer replying to somebody on X saying that there is a PC version as well coming.
Okay. Maybe
in the longer term. So
longer term. Okay, so maybe that'll be that's the Planetarium's expertise in that field, where they have the game on. I play it on mobile and PC. Just it sort of depends on where I am. So that works out quite well. So, I mean, I think it's good. It's obviously good for Immutable, which is sort of having started the year quite hot, and all the games that are coming out is a little bit becalmed now. Guild of Guardians, I play it every day, but it's not. You can't say it's massively popular. None. I think their NFT drops have been pretty unsuccessful. The token's not done anything. The other, Boom, sort of Boomland is their next sort of biggest project on there, and they're having to wait to get their sort of token out, and they're sort of. Their campaign's not live at the moment, so there's not really a lot going on for Immutable. So they sort of do need.
Just wait till they release their 370 games.
Oh, stop it! Trolling me.
Right. Okay. On that note, we are going to wrap up. But thank you very much for listening. I will see you all next week. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Bye.